In Baltimore and WNST.net. It is Preakness time, 142 in town out at Old Hilltop, and that brings in the whole NBC stable of broadcasters who do such a nice job of broadcasting. And I almost don't want to go to the track. I always say that. A lot of years I go to the track, and I get home in time to watch this guy and the crew do it. Lafitte Pinkai back in town, calling all things racing. What a team of people you have out there. You bring the trucks in here, and you're all already warmed up from the Derby, right? So you're all ready to broadcast the Derby winner taking this Triple Crown on its way to Belmont, aren't you, Lafitte?
Absolutely. You know, it's like a horse not needing a work in between the Derby and the Preakness. You're plenty fit. It's a completely different atmosphere here at the Preakness. It's a little bit more laid back. And as always, it's the same broad stroke theme. It's the bridging of the gap from Louisville to New York, and whether or not we will have a Triple Crown attempt. It's funny. The biggest race for all the huge races you have in New York and Saratoga and the marquee historical championship type races, the most significant race on the New York racing calendar takes place in Maryland. And that's the Preakness, because every year that's where we find out whether or not there will be an attempt on a Triple Crown.
You know what? I'm going to sell that to the locals here, dude. I've been doing this 25 years. I've never heard that one before, that New York has to sit around and wait on us. And if the wrong horse wins, it greatly affects this whole thing. But this year, odds-on favored, an incredibly strong run in the Derby against that field on an awful day that I know you and your whole crew were very familiar with how that looked. My wife said, hey, a good thing we skipped Louisville this year. Maybe we'll go next year. Always Dreaming was happy, but there weren't a whole lot of happy people, and there was nobody dry there except that horse, right?
He got such a good trip, and he handled the track. As far as horses that were compromised, it's difficult to say which horses didn't handle the track or just other horses that couldn't handle all the stuff being thrown back in their face. For example, Hence. Hence is a lot better than what you saw in the Derby. Trained so well leading up to the Derby. Steve Asmussen, his trainer, it's not the track. It's all that mud and gunk and stuff being kicked back in his face that he didn't handle. Hence isn't going to have to deal with that on Saturday. Classic Empire, well, he got wiped out at the start with a clean trip. His A game, I think, poses a threat to Always Dreaming's A game. As big of a fan as I am of Always Dreaming, but it's the asterisk when you consider how many horses have won the Derby on a wet racetrack, or recently Mind That Bird Super Saver, trained by Todd Fletcher. They were all defeated in the Preakness Stakes. Many of them came back and ran well in the Preakness, but didn't yield the same results. So the big X factor is the wet track at Churchill versus the dry track we should have Saturday here at Pimlico.
You can follow Lafitte Pinkai at Lafitte Pinkai TV out on Twitter for all things horse racing this weekend. He'll be a part of the NBC crew that's in here and chasing all these horses and all these stories. And, you mentioned Pletcher and getting beaten in the Preakness, and I had Bob Baffert on earlier, and it's kind of a shame he's not here. We always like when all the stars come together in Baltimore. But in the case of Pletcher, he doesn't love running these horses in 2 weeks. And I know we've had stories and you've written about this a number of years ago and talk about this a number of years ago. And anytime I think a horse does pull up lame or there is a problem, we talk about the distance between these races. One of the things that makes it so hard to do, so impossible to do over 4 decades has been that these horses really shouldn't be running 2 weeks back to back. And Pletcher sort of feels that way because he doesn't do it as a rule, right?
Rarely. I want to say this is only going to be maybe his 9th, I believe, start in the Preakness for Todd Fletcher. He'll run in the Preakness with either a fresh horse who didn't run in the Derby or a Derby winner. Aside from that, generally speaking, he is going to skip the Preakness. I think that's just a modern-day trend in horse racing where horses just race less often with more time in between races. So while
like
I've
pitchers
never
in baseball, is what I compared it this week. Pitchers don't pitch every 4th day; they pitch on 5 days. They don't pitch 9 innings anymore; they pitch 5 or 6 innings.
Yeah.
And I guess that creates better health and better longevity, right?
I think that always what's in best interest for the horse. That's first and foremost. I think just doing it once in their career, and they're not like, for example, one change that Todd Fletcher's making with Always Dreaming that he did with Super Saver. He actually worked 3 furlongs in between the Derby and the Preakness. He's not going to do that with Always Dreaming. He's just going to gallop him up to the race. So I don't think that if any of these horses weren't physically fit or showing signs of fatigue or some sort of reluctance in terms of the quick turnaround, they wouldn't be running. You're talking about some of the best horsemen and trainers in the industry. No horses are in any harm's way simply because of the quick turnaround. It's just the adjustment that the trainers actually have to make in terms of getting a horse ready in 14 days off the quick comeback.
Well, you certainly heard all of the conjecture about moving these races around. For that or against that?
Against.
Against. Okay.
I think I think if had they done that and American Pharoah wins a Triple Crown, well, there's an asterisk next to American Pharoah's name. Back in the 70s, there were so many Triple Crown winners. They were talking about trying to make the Triple Crown more difficult, right? That it was too easy.
We're going to run 3 miles at Belmont?
Right. Well, the other thing is they were talking about spacing out the races. That might actually make it more difficult because the Preakness, the second leg, would come up tougher than it does now because there's going to be more incentive for these trainers to run because there is more space in between races. I think for the most part, though, once we saw a Triple Crown winner, most of that noise was quieted to a certain extent because we realized it wasn't impossible for a modern-day thoroughbred to win 3 races in 5 weeks.
Would you prefer a stiffer field this week? And certainly Royal Mo was one of those horses that was going to come from the outside. We've seen a lot of trainers do this in past years, especially if they don't qualify, come in and try to beat the Derby winner at the Preakness. It doesn't feel like this is the stiffest test for Always Dreaming this week.
I think it's pretty good. I think it's all right. I think Classic Empire is a legit. He is the most formidable foe. I think that I think Gunnevera is better than what he's shown in his last couple of races. We already discussed Hence. Everybody's quiet on looking at Lee, even though he managed to, he finished his second in the Kentucky Derby, and yet it seems like he's off everyone's radar. Royal Mo would have changed the complexion of the race with the speed that he would have brought to the party, and Gary Stevens' aggressive style. He probably would have been a pace setter. Now, I guess Conquest Mo Money makes the lead. Not quite sure how aggressive they're going to be. He and Cloud Computing of the Fresh Faces, they're really good racehorses. But I think I don't think that this isn't like California Chrome having to face maybe a Ride-On Curlin, who was the best finisher in the Derby to emerge from the Derby and run in the Preakness. I think this race is a little bit deeper, a little bit saltier than it looks at first glance.
Well, maybe part of that too was it wasn't sort of the race to the finish in the Derby. It felt like there was an incredible distance between this horse, the quality of this horse, and I think the gambling, the people out there on Saturday, they're going to be hard pressed to bet against Always Dreaming, right?
You have to. He's strictly the one to beat. There's no reason, unless there's something about the off track, unless it is the 2 weeks and the reluctance Todd Pletcher usually has with the 2 week turnaround. If it feels like you're reaching for reasons to beat Always Dreaming, it's because you are. You have to get creative. To me, it's Always Dreaming and Classic Empire in a race that I think racing fans are really going to enjoy. Handicappers and the gamblers, for them, there's going to be much better races to attack over the course of the weekend.
But you've been doing this a long time. You've been around the track forever. There'll be a lot of people that the only time they visit the track will be this week, and some of them may never even see a horse. But for a lot of us who've been to Derbies and Belmonts, and I've run bus trips up for Triple Crowns year after year when that happens, and I've been to the Derby probably 9 or 10 times over the course of my life. I love this stuff, but I'm not the guy out there on a Tuesday in March. I'm not the guy in Vegas, grabbing a pen and, betting races from far away. But when I go, I do love it. You spend your whole life in it. Sell it for me a little bit, Lafitte. Tell some folks about why they need to care about horse racing and be involved in this and get out there this week and smell the fresh air that you guys have brought in here.
Well, I've never taken anybody to a horse race for a first time and them not having enjoyed the experience. Now, you don't just sell somebody on the gambling and the handicapping, though it's a huge, huge, huge part of the industry, obviously. Was the line from Let It Ride. Without gambling, you don't have horse racing. But when somebody first goes to the track and you're going to show them what a day at the races is all about, the first thing you don't just hand them a racing form. The racing form can be very intimidating if you haven't seen it in the past. It's almost like, hieroglyphics if you haven't been introduced to what the statistics and numbers and speed figures and all that means. What I normally see is somebody goes to a track. There's the social aspect. There's the people watching. There's a strong social presence about being at any race, especially on a big day. And somebody says, wow, that was a lot of fun. I don't necessarily understand the sport, but I want to come back. And then on the second or third time back to the racetrack, what's this racing form all about? What is that emblem? What
The
does that
form
logo
is
mean? What does that
complicated.
number
I mean, the
mean?
form is a little bit like Chinese algebra at some point to a lot of people. I don't think it's very, very intimidating, I think, even in the modern era, right? First off, it's on paper, which makes it strange. But yeah, it takes years to figure out some parts of this, right?
Still, you have handicappers that'll tell you that they're still learning, and the day they stop learning is when it's gonna get away from them a little bit. You constantly, the horses change, the trainers' methods change, the information that we have access to is constantly changing. There's so much more of it. That's new stats, race lens product. If you're a fan of analytics in baseball and the sabermetricians, like you have some of that type of statistical information in horse racing now. And the handicapper consistently has to stay on top of it and evolve with the game from that standpoint. But yeah, new people going to the racetrack, it's not about betting. It's not about the racing form. It's about the experience. It's about the atmosphere.
Lafitte, man, you dropped a Let It Ride reference. And, I mean, how did you know that was the movie we show every time we go to Belmont? I've had that
no idea.
I had it on VHS. I had to find it on DVD over the years because, I mean, there's no finer horse racing movie than Let It Ride, right?
It's a classic. It's so good. It's not quite as dramatic as Seabiscuit.
I don't want to hear Seabiscuit and all that mushy stuff. It's a fun movie, right?
No, Let It Ride. There's so much quotable from that movie, and I think the reason I could relate to it and why I've watched it 57 times is so many of those characters. Every one of us that's been in the racetrack and spent significant time at a racetrack, everybody in that movie, we know somebody who represents that very character that you see at any racetrack on any given Saturday.
Or several people.
Or several.
Hey, man, it was great having you on. Great to visit with you as always. And any predictions? We're going to have a Triple Crown possibility here, you believe, on Saturday night?
I do. I think we see that's a big party looming in New York with Anthony Bonomo and Vinny Viola both being from Williamsburg, both growing up in Brooklyn. John Velasquez, Todd Fletcher, they've done most of their damage in New York, and I think we're getting ready for a big party at Belmont. But it is horse racing. That's why they won the races. I was pretty confident in Nyquist last year. He was denied, so Always Dreaming has to go out there and earn it. They're not going to give it to him, and I think Classic Empire is going to pose a real challenge. It's going to be a great horse race.
Always more difficult than it looks on the form, even if you don't understand the form. Lafitte Pincay joining us here. You can join him at Lafitte Pincay TV on Twitter and at NBC. He'll be calling the races before, during, after analysis, along with the rest of the NBC team. We got some new members in the NBC team this year, right?
Yeah. The team's always expanding, and Eddie Olczyk's back for a second or third year, I believe. Krista Voda's on board, hosting the undercard on NBCSN, and yeah, it's extremely excited about the crew. It couldn't be any more passionate, and absolutely love the game, and very proud to be part of the Triple Crown coverage in general, and thrilled with the Derby show, and can't wait for the second jewel on Saturday.
Hey, listen, it sounds like you're going to see Eddie O. Slide him a note with my name and number. Tell him I'm still looking for him, and that I'm really upset about the Caps thing, and I'm blaming it on him. Let him know that, all right?
Yeah, about the Caps thing?
Caps thing, yeah. I got to blame it on somebody. Yeah. I can't blame it on Ovechkin or Trotz or, Fate or whatever. Yeah. I got to blame it on him, so let him know.
I'll tell him.
Tell him or Doc. Either him or Doc or Pierre. I'm blaming it on NBC is what I'm doing. All right, man. We'll see you soon.
Right.
Thanks, Lafitte.
You got it. Take care, buddy.
Lafitte Pincay TV, the way to find him out on Twitter as well as out on the internet and at NBC CSN. NBC. NBCSN, right. I said it right. I knew I said it right. I didn't say MS, I said NB, right. NBC Sports Network, they'll be here all weekend. They'll be doing it. We got Pink on Friday. We've got Black Eyed Susie's on Saturday. We got the Preakness on Saturday afternoon. Some drinks, some infield, some memories of which I don't remember, some other memories I wish I didn't remember, and a lot of losing tickets over there. I did hit the triple 10 years ago, though, and I'm still bragging about that. So I think I cashed like a $200 ticket or something crazy, something I wasted my money on, I'm sure. You can find me out in the Bahia Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. You can download the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from wherever you happen to be. The Bahia Toyota Audio Vault is there for you, and they've been with us for over a decade. Big thanks to everyone there at the Pivot Group and BahiaToyota.com. Last but never least, if you want that morning newspaper, a little cup of coffee in the morning, 7 a.m., it comes digitally. You can read it anywhere you are. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. We got our road trips, London, Green Bay, Nashville, all on sale now at WNST.net under the Road Trips tab. And I'm going to be out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.